Let's start with the Shanti Mantra. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. दिवि भूमौ तथा काशे बहिरन्तश्च मे विभुः यो विभात्यवभासात्मा तस्मै सर्वात्मने नमः. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. In this culture that we have description of, or we have the mention of several people who eternally lived. Like, for example, that we say, like Dhruva was eternally living, and then the idea of Ashwathama lived for eternity. Like that, few people references are there. But we don't have a great detail about how that eternal living was possible for these people. How they managed to do that, or is there really that is kind of a thing is there, or it's fictional? Even if it is fictional also, there is no description about how they lived for eternity. There's no mechanism involved in that. It was only just because that somebody granted them an eternal life, so they are living. This is the kind of approach that has. Similarly, like that of Anjaneya, the Hanumanta, supposed to be eternally living. In Hanumanta's case, that there are here and there stories that he came back again in the form of somebody or the other, and then he exhibited himself to be the Hanumanta. Like that we come to know about it. Like the way that he was there at the Ramayana time. He was one of the main persons in Ramayana, heroes next to him. But at the same time that you could see that when Bhima went to Himalayas and then he met Hanuman there, and Hanuman gives them the instructions about what are the warfare that he has to follow. So like that, there is some reference about that, but it's only in the Bhushundu's case. Maybe it's fictional character, we don't mind it. But what happens is that the story is there to see that how he survived. And there, the question is asked that how you survive, and then he survives. And there is another very important aspect is that, you see, a creature which lives only during the evening and doesn't, next morning it doesn't see. Creatures born in the night and die in the night, they don't know what is called as day. We know day and night because we surpass day and night. We'll outlive that. Similarly, year after year, that we see that the cycle continues. And then that we know because that we outlive year after year those things. Like that, we have several cycles that are there through which that creation has been recognized. And some cycle that we know is a cycle of day and night. Similarly, the cycle of years. And then 365 days, another cycle starts. January, February, and all that start according to the Western calendar. But the same way, Indian calendar also has the months which start various things. But apart from that, we have another cycle about the Indian philosophy, that is the cycle about the months, years that we have. 12 months that is there in a year. And not only that, a year also has the name. We don't go by year, by the number, but by the name. So that means to say there are 60 names that are there for 60 years. And then cycle continues after 60 years. Again, Prabha, Vibha, Pramodata, Prajatpati, like that it goes on. It's a bigger cycle. Day and night is one cycle, but then the year is a bigger cycle. 60 years is another cycle. 60-year description is given because once in 60 years that all the stars and planets that were there planned 60 years later, that again all this combination will take place. Therefore, the whole thing goes on as if it is a repetition of the earlier 60 years. The names will once again continue with the help of Prabha, Vibha, Pramodita, etc., etc. Like that it continues. In that way, when you look at it, this year is supposed to be Sharvari Nama Samvatsara year, and this year is 34th in the series of 60 years. This apart, there's another very important aspect is that we follow the Indian calendar, which is unique. In India, that traditionally that for various functions and all that we follow Indian calendar. We do not go by the Western calendar. There are some advantages about the Indian calendar over the Western calendar. In fact, Western calendar, when you take it, it's a static calendar. That means to say 30 days, 31 days, 28 days, all these things are very static. So therefore, that there is no change in that. There is only the way that it goes on. Earlier, to start with, there were only 10 months. That's why decimal is supposed to be 1/10th, and then December is supposed to be actually 10th month, but we have named it as 12th month. Similarly, November, Nava means actually 9, according to the English language, but then November is 11th month. Octa is supposed to be 8, but then we have October, which is supposed to be 10th month. That means somewhere, some discipline is lost and something happened. That means this calendar was not satisfying with the 10 months. Earlier we had only 10 months. It did not satisfy. Therefore, that somebody has introduced in between, during the time of Julius Caesar, that's in the name of July, named after Julius Caesar. But then even that was not sufficient, therefore that they added one more month, and that's what is Saint Augustine's name, and that is August. So like that, totally they became 12 months. Because those two are interjected in between, October, November, December happened in the later time. Therefore, October becomes the 10th month, November is the 11th month, and December is the 12th month. Anyway, this way that they are working with the calendar, the Western world, whereas Indian calendar is something which never they changed it over the last several 6,000, 7,000 years. That means say whatever the description that Indian calendar has given at the time of 6,700 years ago, Rama's time, the same calendar, same order is maintained. And not only that, according to that calendar, whatever the full moon and new moon, the sun solitude, and then moon, all those things which are given the description several thousands of years ago, today you can calculate and come to that same conclusion, whatever it was there. So that means to say this calendar is applicable, very intricate, applicable over several thousands of years. What was the reason how that this calendar has become like that? The simple reason for that is that Indian calendar is a dynamic calendar. When we say dynamic calendar, it is the calendar keeps on adjusting itself according to the time, like the way that our stomach adjusts according to the food that we are given, timings that we are given. Like that, this calendar is also as lively, as living as a human being. Therefore, it undergoes the particular change, but in such a way that after these changes that occur, ultimately it comes to again establish one reality about this time. The unique thing, I will not go into the details about understanding the calendar, explaining about the calendar, but suffices to say that the day will not start with the sunrise or sunset, so day will not go, but then it is somewhere in between the day started according to the Indian calendar. Day is supposed to be called as Tithi. So today's Tithi starts at 10 o'clock and tomorrow's Tithi might start at 12 o'clock during the midnight. And then day after tomorrow it might start at 6 o'clock in the morning. That means it is not static, but it is something which is dynamic. It involves a lot of calculations. It involves three-dimensional calculations. So with all those things, it's a really complex one that they have created. And this never has gone change for several thousands of years. So according to this, that we have a cycle called as the 60 years calendar. But then similar like that we have several thousands of years, there is what is called as one yuga. Yuga means that there are certain qualities of that yuga, there are certain principles of that yuga, and the mankind followed that kind of a dharma, or the quality of that particular yuga, or the principles of that yuga. Like that we have four yugas: Krita Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. And Krita Yuga is also called as Satya Yuga. Now there is reason why Satya Yuga and Krita Yuga, they have two names. Krita means whatever that you do it. Satya means whatever the truth that is there. So that means to say whatever that I say is whatever that is done. Whatever I thought in my mind is the same thing done. That means to say Krita Yuga is the time where there is a proper absolute alignment between my thinking and my activity. There's absolutely no play, no distance between what is my thinking and what is that my doing. So therefore, the whole activity is supposed to be Satya Yuga or also Krita Yuga. And later on, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga, and now Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, now Kali Yuga. So therefore, these are the four yugas, and all these four yugas together is supposed to be one kalpa. So several kalpas like that is supposed to be one mahakalpa. So a mahakalpa can be several thousands and thousands of years, because each yuga has several thousand years. So a combination of all these things will make kalpa, and combination of such kalpas will become mahakalpa. But everything is in the form of cycle. When we say cycle, that means to say the spring goes into the monsoon and this and that, and finally spring comes back. That means to say it almost starts like from the starting point. So when it begins from the starting point, that means to say the things always follow the same way. The order is the same, like the way that monsoon is the same when the rains come, winter is the time when it is cold, fall is the time when the leaves fall and snow will be there, and then again spring comes, again everything springs. See that it's exactly following the same pattern that is there every year. But then there is another very important aspect, is that not only that follows a particular order, but though it is exactly the same way, that means there is some discipline in the way that they follow. But every spring is unique, every flower is unique, every rainy season is unique. So that means to say there's always some uniformity, but at the same time there is innovation with each time. There are certain things which come almost like in memory, but there are certain things which are added new. It is like the way that when you look at the leaves of a particular species of trees, like for example mango leaves, wherever you go, mango leaves exactly follow the same way. Not only that, 5 miles away that you can look at the leaves and recognize that it must be mango tree. But then when you look at the mango trees, that Each is so unique in its shape and size and all that. And the leaves are also very unique when you closely observe that. From distance, what looked to be uniform, from the close, when you look at it, it is supposed to be having that variety. Similarly, if you take one leaf, there is a central leaf, and in between the leaf and then both the sides of the leaf almost look like a mirror image. But then when you closely observe, they're absolutely chaotic. They are not the same. So it seems that there is one thing called as orderliness, and at the same time there is chaos. There is a discipline there, but at the same time there is uniqueness that's going on in each one. The creation has a combination of all those things. Every mother carries for 9 months a baby and then gives birth to the baby. Every baby follows the particular order, the various activities of the time scale. But at the same time, each child is very unique in the way that he comes up. So that means there is orderliness and there is chaos, and all this together is the way that this particular creation takes place. This is what Bhushundu says, that somebody who gone beyond the various changes, he will know that the changes occur. Like the way that we live for 70, 80, 100 years, we know that winter is there, then followed by the summer. And monsoon rains are there, and after that again the winter comes. We know all that because we transcended that. If we did not transcend that, if we had followed only one year and we do not exist beyond that, then we would not have known that all these seasons exist. So therefore, that all these 20, 60 years that one who live and then go beyond, then you can see that the same pattern is continuing in that way. In Bhushundu, in his case, it's not just 1 year or one season, but it goes year after year after year, like the way that it goes to one yuga. It's not only yuga, 60 years and 60 like that, several 60 years become one yuga. But it is not one yuga, but he also outstretches himself beyond the kalpa. So that means he's reborn, everything is continuing the way that kalpa. Though everything is eliminated and goes through several cycles, but he is somebody sitting there on the tree and waiting for that. Last time we have seen that. He describes that there is one tree that is there in the celestial being, and then I just go there and sit on the tree, so that when a big delusion takes place, when the whole revamping of the creation takes place, overhauling of the creation takes place, I just hide behind. And then when the whole thing settles down, I will come back to live. He said one thing very beautiful. He said that I see the same thing happening again and again in every kalpa, but at the same time, there is something which is very unique about each kalpa, very unique about each birth. It may not be the same thing, but it looks to be similar, but at the same time, there is something which is uniqueness about it. So we are all unique in that sense. And our journey is absolutely unique. So this is the idea that he gives, that we follow this particular pattern that is there. He says, I follow that. He says that last time we talked about it and we read about it, that Bhushundu says, Mat sankalpa vashenaiva kalpe kalpe punaha punaha asminneva gire shrungehe taruhu ityam bhavatyatha. Just through the force of my will, in every world cycle, again and again, this tree comes into being like this, and on the top of this very mountain. The tree comes on top of it, the mountain, and on top of the tree, I come here. Yavat punaha kamalajaha srishtikarmani tishtati tavat pravishati brahmanda tishtami vihagalate, vihagalaye. Vihagalaye, that means to say the abode of the tree that is there on the top of it. When the lotus born Brahma, see, Brahma comes back again and again, and then occupies himself in the work of creation at that position, because he is the creator, and then enters into the universe. I remain in the abode of the birds. So I live in the abode of birds. Again and again, I come back like the way Brahma comes back. This is what in Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, Krishna says, Abrahma Bhuvanal Lokal Punaravartin Arjuna. Right from the Brahma Loka up to the Bhuloka, Punaravartin Arjuna. Revisiting takes place every time. Reincarnation takes place. Coming back again takes place. That means to say basically you are the consciousness, you are the self, and then this body goes and then you come in the next body, different circumstances, and the journey continues. And what is this journey for? This journey for basically accomplishing some idea that you have, and that idea is stored deep inside you, and that is what provokes you to come back to this universe. One ultimate idea that we have is to see that I want liberation. And for that liberation, for that mukti moksha, I keep coming. Until the time, whatever that is stored in the form of my vasana, samskara, and that's what being exhausted every time that I come here. But at the same time, I may also accrue new vasanas and all those things that are there. So therefore, the whole thing in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Abrahma Bhuvanal Loka Punaravartin Arjuna. Right from the Brahma Loka to the Bhuloka, Punaravartinaha. It comes back again and again. So when the Brahma Loka, the tree comes back, then I also come back along with the tree. And that's what the reincarnation takes place. And we have these days, scientifically, we have evidence to show many of the question marks that were there can be answered efficiently with the help of an idea of reincarnation. So that means to say you come back. But when you come back, it's a new environment, new impressions, and all those things are there. So therefore, what happens is that when we come back, whatever that earlier intention with which that you take birth, it is superimposed by the present day conditions, and all those things are influencing. And under that influence, now you have maybe that you have stagnated from the further journey that you need to make, or maybe that you have compromised certain issues according to the desha kala, according to the time and the space that you are there. Earlier you might have been born in a part of India, but next time that you're born in a part of Turkey. So the whole environment, the whole association is totally different. But at the same time, even though all those things are different, but there is some urge within you want to accomplish, and that's what is one which brought you back to the life. It struggles to come out. It tries to manifest itself. So this way our journey in the spirituality continues. Vasishtha says, Yathatishtasi Pakshindra Dharanabhihi Akhanditaha Kalpanteshu Tatha Kasmin Nanye Tishtanti Yoginaha. Page 218, the shloka number 30. But who among the birds that you are the best? Pakshindra, that means to say among the birds you are the best. For what reason? Other yogis do not exist at the end of the world cycle, as you remain undisturbed, everlasting through your steady contemplation. See, I have not heard any species that is living beyond the death, beyond the dissolution, that ultimate point of total dissolution comes. They all go back into dissolution, but at the same time that you don't hear any story that they have come back. But in your case, it happened. What's the reason why it happened? A very interesting idea that Vasishtha asked Bhushundu. Vasishtha himself is a great sage, and Bhushundu is somebody who is a crow who is extraordinarily trained, and he is somebody who living across the whole kalpa, that means to say a cycle of all the yugas that are there together, millions and millions of years that he continues. So therefore he comes back again to do that. So this is what in Bhagavad Gita also Krishna very clearly says in 8th chapter, that you will come back to see that you pursue certain things, but then now you add new items on your pursuit list. Therefore this journey continues. If you don't add any more and then you try to exhaust whatever that is there within you, then you can escape the path of birth and coming back and all those things. But then I'm interested in coming back. At that time, when you really become totally freed from the vasanas, your own sankalpa, your own simple thinking, I would like to come back, you can definitely come back. What you want to pursue, you can pursue it. But then that time that you are with the freedom. That's why I say that the others try to do the activities for the sake of freedom, mukti or moksha. Whereas some people come here, they do the activity with moksha, with the freedom that is there in their hands. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I don't do any activity because I have to do something like that. Namam karmani limpanti, name karma phale smrutaha. I don't even remember that what are the things that I need to do it. Right in front of me is something to show compassion and this, etc., etc. Divine qualities are there. I just manifest that. That's all. So I don't do it. It just happens like that. So yathatishta pakshindra dharanabhi akanditah tatyat sutra kalpanteshu tatha kasmat nanye tishtanti yoginah. But among the birds, what reason other yogis do not exist at the end of the bird cycle, but you remain, you exist, and then you come back. And through your own steady contemplation, that means to say some special extra technique that you do it. For that, Bhushundu replies, Brahman, Niyatireshahi, Dullanghya Parameshwari, Idrushena Maya Bhavyam Nanyescha Tadrushe. This Dullanghya Parameshwari is a beautiful expression that he gives. And what is that? Brahman Niyatiresha. Whatever that is ordained by the Brahman, whatever that is the Supreme Lord ordained, and then it's very difficult to violate. Durlanghya Parameshwari. It's very difficult to see that you transcend. You go beyond that. So, Idrushena Maya Bhavyam Nanyascha Tadrushaye. So, it is so to accomplished by me, by the kind, and not so accomplished by those of that kind. The simple answer is that I have accomplished this, others do not accomplish, because they only see the death and they only see that elimination takes place. But then I overcome that kind of a problem, so that difficulty. So I don't undergo that. Year after year, life after life, I come back. And that's how Kalpante, I'll come back. After a year, then Yuga, after each Yuga, I come back. Again, after the 4 Yugas, I come back. And that's what is supposed to be the way. That Punarjanma, or the rebirth, takes place. Vasishtha Vasha. Kim smarasi kalyana chitra mastiti mastit masmin jagat krame. Blessed one, what wonderful things do you remember? See, you came again and again. What are the things that you remember? You can share with me in the succession of the worlds. Apart from what routine happening, but there is something which is extraordinary thing happened. So can you please share with me those things that you experience? Bhushundu says, Bhushundu Vacha, Ashailavana Vrukshauga, Smarami Mam Dharatha, Janmendri Bhaskaradinam, Indropendrashva Avastitam, Hiranyaksha Praharanam, Varako Dharanam Shikshya, Sagaranam Samudbhutim, Amrutartham Namantaram. So now he gives the account of what all the things that he sees when he comes back. I remember the earth below, without this, its multitude of the mountains, forces, and trees, the birth of the moon. The birth of the moon. I see the moon coming up and going, and the sun, and the arrangement of Indra. So now this is where the gods, we have various gods attributed to various perceptive senses and all those things. But the central unit of all those things is another god. And that's what we call it as Indra. That's what he says, that Indra, the lord of the demigods, he is the one who multitude, forests and trees, the birth of the moon and the sun, like that. And then there is one thing which is supposed to be the way that it is the deliverance of Vara. And when he comes back, then he gives the account of what all the things that he remembers. He remembers about the Hiranyaksha and its deliverance of Varaha, or the incarnation of God ocean. So there was one time where that there was a great Rakshasa, he was there, a great demon that was there, and he was supposed to be known as the great person who contributes to the industry actually. So this way, Varaha bears the whole earth. This is what is Varaha Avatara, that means a reincarnation of God that way. Generation of oceans and journey. And then there is another thing which is supposed to be the turtle, tortoise. And then God appeared to be like a tortoise, and he supports the earth. He supports the both demons and the gods to see that how they churn the ocean, so that extraordinary things come out of that ocean. And it happens, and I watch that every time it happens. Eternally, it's been happening routinely. And then similarly, he says that Hiranyaksha Haranam Varadaho Dharanam Kshipe. So Hiranyakashipu is one demon, and then he was killed. He was pushed underground by the Vishnu, by the great Lord. So all that I know, it happens within me that I see all those things again repeatedly. And then Sagaranam Samudbhutam Amritartham Cha Manthanam. That means to say, then I see once again that ocean of milk, and then these gods and demigods, they are trying to use the earth and then Meru mountain in the form of this thing, and then they try to churn the ocean so that beautiful, wonderful things come up. In the beginning, that there was a poison that has come up, but later on it is the nectar that comes out, and all those things are distributed. This I see, I recollect every time this is happening. But then I cannot interfere with those things. I let the things happen. It's in spite of me, those things are happening. What he says is similar to the experience that many times that we have. When we sit for meditation, when we go deep into meditation, into subtler layers, once you reach that layer, then when from that subtle layer of meditation, when you are coming out, you wake up. But that waking up, that subtle layer of meditation is a state where you have transcended the time scale. That means to say, whatever the time is there, that you come out of it, you occupy a different time space during that time, and then that is what you are running within you. Or maybe in the future that you come across, and then when you wake up, that that time identity does not match the present one, because you are somewhere in the future. A month later, 2 months later, 6 months later, whatever you would be, and that's what you see. But then what happens? The situation outside is not that way, so many years ahead. So when you wake up, that glimpse of something which is there in the future, say 15 days later, 1 month later, or 3 months later, whatever that state that you come across, but then that does not match with the present situation, the mind rushes back to the present. The glimpse of it, fraction of a second, is something that you know it, confused, but then you come back. Generally, people, when they have that kind of an experience, they don't even know why it happened, what happened. But later on, when the time settles, goes forward, until such time when your internal time that when you have watched is exactly matches with the external time, it looks suddenly that, yes, I know this incident, I went through this experience, these persons will be there, these are the dialogues that go on. So it looks like that every information that you have is like a film reel that runs, and then you see the whole thing. Many times it's very frightening, but many times you are confused, but then later on that you will understand what is the reason. This is what is the way that mind spectrum is there deep inside, and that we unravel. Such a person who quietens mind, So he goes into that state. So that is the same thing happened in the case of Bhushundu, that he goes to that for a moment, that he cuts off himself from the creation. He becomes like a deep inner witness. And then when he is in the witness that the kalpa changes, rebirth takes place, maybe several thousands of years according to the creator himself. But then in spite of it, I will come back. So every time I come back, it's like a fresh experience, but at the same time, it has the combination of previous experiences that are there. So therefore, this Hiranyaksha Apaharanam, Hiranyaksha Apaharanam, that this incident of Hiranyaksha, and also Varahodharanam. Varaha is the boar, and then that boar incarnation. All these things I see, Kshate, and then Sagaranam Samudbhutam, Amrutartham cha Manthanam. That means churning of the ocean that has taken place, and out of which that Amrita, the nectar that comes out, all those things I see. Everything is there visible in front of me, because when I transcend the time, all these things are available. Munete Brahmaputrasya Janmashtabhi idam kila Renuka Putranam Yataha Pushtavaram Imam Hari. These are the stories of Puranas that we have. Our story from Ramayana also it is there. Indeed, the eighth son of the God and the son of Brahma, the great bird Hari, the Lord Vishnu, has become Parashurama, the incarnation of the Renuka Devi, for the 6 times here. So again and again that this whole incident is being repeated in front of me. It looks very strange, because that whatever that incident is there, it happened for several thousands of years. But then he sees once again here and there all these things happen. That's where he pursues all those things, but their perception is in a very subtle world, not the case of gross world. That means to say, when he looks at the seed, he does not look at the seed. Everybody looks at the seed, but he looks at the tree that is there inside the seed that is there. Therefore, he exactly knows what is going to happen when it has happened, when it happens. He remembers about that. So, Trimshat Tripura Vikshepat, Dau Daksha Das Rasam Chayehi, Smarami Dwadasham Chetah, Amritabhyod Manthanah, Atunaikadasham Janma, Ramanamna Harehe Bhavet, Vasade Gruhe Pachapi, Bhavita Janma Shosharat. So I remember all these conflicts that are there in Tripura, the 3 cities of the demon. He says Tripura Vikshenath, the destruction aspects of God, and 2 destructions of the religious sacrifices by the Dhaka, by Daksha, one of the sons of the Brahman. So all these things are the sequences that happened in the history, in the Puranas that you see. He says all these sequences that are in the Puranas, I see. There will be 11th birth as Rama, the Lord Hari. So in this sequence, the Haris take birth in the form of Rama. Then also Vasudeva, son, and that's what is Krishna. All these things happened in one kalpa, and I repeated the whole thing in the form of kalpa. So, Bhrantireshu Jagadrupaha Kadachana Vidyate tu Kadachichi Chicha Jala Buddhavansitaha. This delusion that occurs in the form of world does not exist at any time, but it also exists sometime. It remains like a bubble of water. This analogy is very beautiful, because bubble of water is something where inside is also water, outside is water, the same thing. And it is separated by one small little thin of surface tension that is there. There is nothing which separates it other than a thin film. So he says this kind of the take place of the whole creation that goes on in the form of world does not exist at any time, but it also exists sometime and remaining like the bubble of water. The idea is that the existence is such a vast thing as we look at it, but then the aspect of non-existent that is there, shunya, that's a vacuum. That's much more than that. And when you look at this night sky, you see that here and there one star which is shining, another star which is shining. And then in between, there is a huge gap of darkness that is there. So that means to say, compared to the creation that's there, amount of darkness that you see, compared to the light amount of darkness, the proportion is that the light portion is just not even not 1%. The same way that the creation is for a short period of time from the point of view of Brahman, but then there is non-created aspect of it, or the unmanifest aspect is so vast. So it's a small little idea that it's their creation takes place. Then Vasishtha asks that Charatam Jagataha Koshe Vyavaharavatam Api Katham Vihagarajendra Deham Mrityuhu Nabadhate. A very interesting question that he asks, and which is the reflection of prana, that means pranachinta. Hey, king of the birds, how is that the death does not affect the body of even those moving about within the world and having their affairs, the occupation? Bhushundu says, Desha Mukta Phala Prota Vasana Tantu Nintati Hridi Na Gratita Yasya Mrityuhu Tamna Jighamsasi Ashayam Na Dahatyantaha Mrityuhu Tamna Jighamsasi. Death does not seek to kill him, in whose heart the continuous line of the thread of mental impressions passed through the pearls of faults or the sins is not stuck. Death does not wish to kill him, whose hope does not burn within. Somebody who has the peaceful state within, somebody he's so satisfied from deep within, and somebody who manages everything in such a way that he is not touched by anything which is the world outside, for him, death does not touch him. Which is the indication showing that the consciousness is something which is beyond the death. Body, mind, intellect, and all these things, they undergo the death. They undergo recycling. They go back and then come back again. But then the one that is there deep inside the consciousness, it's not touched by these things. And that's what when Kama Krodhadi Hino Yaha Mrityuhu Tamna Jighamsasi Yasya Chittam Savishnante Pade Paramapavane Nachanjalam Mano Yasya Tam Mrityuhu Najighamsasi. Death does not kill him who is without any desires and anger. Death does not kill him whose mind is well reposed and the most holy abode and is not fickle. When the mind is steady, that means you transcend the mind. When the intellect is steady, then you transcend the intellect. You go beyond that. When you know all these things, then you become one with the Atman. The self is, and that self is something which is not touched by all these things that are there out. Yes, chittam shuvishranto. This is what is the 41st sutra. Pade paramapavane. This idea of pavana is something which is extraordinary. Normally, there are pairs of opposite, good and bad, right and wrong, clean and unclean, and all that. Pavana is something which does not have the opposite. That means it is uniquely placed in such a way that it is beyond any form of pairs of opposite that you go beyond. Black and white, birth and death, right and not right. So all these pairs of opposite that are there, you transcend both these things, and ultimate transfer of the ultimate duality that we have is the duality called as birth and death. And somebody who crossed all that pairs of opposite, including the pair called birth and death, that's what is the state of pavani. And once you paramapavani, nachanchalam mano yasya tamrityuhu najigamsasi. Death does not seek those who are without any desire and anger. And then death does not wish to kill him whose mind is equipoised, that is in the Pavana Sthiti, the most holy abode, and is not fickle. In the Mrityu, Najigamsasi. Mrityu does not touch it. When such a person is absolutely no chanchalata, that means to say no wavering of the mind, still, and then he can go beyond it. In fact, the very stillness is the one which transports to beyond the mind. There is nothing like I have to quieten the mind, then I have to do something to reach that higher state. No. When the mind itself does not exist, it quietens, you naturally get into the transcending of the mind. Ete Brahman Mahadoshaha Sasam Kshadi Hetavaha Managapicha Limpanti Chittam Ekasamahitam. The same, this great fault, which are the cause of the disease of worldly existence, do not seize the mind, which is firm and composed even a little. There's a very beautiful dance form that is there in the Sufi community, which is called as Darwish Dance. Or it is popularly known as the whirling monks or whirling sages, they call it. They wear a huge big gown, these men, and they go round and round and round for the Sufi music, and they gyrate, continuously rotate. 6, 8 of them, something like that on the platform, they do it. So uniform they do it, and then when they are gyrating, going round and round, you don't even see that there's any change in them, that they are so steady, and then they'll be going around. Like the simple top, which has got a proper support of the ground, and then it is rotating itself in such a way that you don't see the rotation, as if the top is just balancing, standing there still. That still way that it observed. And the same way this Darwish dance also are the people who rotate and then they still. And not only that, they keep the hands in a particular position, one hand above like that, and the other hand opposite hand like that. It symbolizes emotionally saying that they receive the God's grace and pass it on to the earth. That's why these people are supposed to be the people who keep the world, harmony, and all those things that they say. But then another very important aspect is that if you go round and round even for about 3, 4, 5 rounds, you already develop the giddiness. Your eyes start going round and round and all that. You feel like zombie, or you feel that as if that you are drunk. Many times you can't even stand, you will fall down. But whereas these people go round and round and round for almost like half an hour, and then they stop when at the end of it, and then they do normal function. They are not affected by all this idea. Why it happens like that is, these people see that when they rotate maintaining that the center of the fall of weight that is there, center of gravity, the line of gravity that is there, and along with that line of gravity, they rotate. That means to say, normally when we rotate, what happens? Our line of gravity falls away from the line of rotation. So therefore, as a result of it, we are eccentric when we are rotating. Therefore, we have effect on our brain of these things. Whereas when they rotate, they position the hands in such a way that that rotation is done like the way a tightrope walker is walking on the rope. It is that kind of a feeling that is there. So therefore, they don't get affected by the gravity. The gravity will not touch them. When the gravity will not touch them, then naturally they will not be pulled by the ground unnecessarily, and then they can avoid the giddiness that is developed. This is psychology. This is a phenomena that's probably available there. We can understand that. But what happens is that they have mastered over that art, which we do not know it. So that means to say they are not affected by whatever the rotation that they are doing. Taking that analogy here, he says that somebody who is not affected by these things, Chittam, Suvishranam Pade Paramapavanam, Chanchalam Mano Yasya, Nachanchalam Mano Yasya, Tam Mrityana Jigamshasi. Such a person will not be subjected to death, will not be subjected to by this rotation that's going on. So he's free from that. So therefore, there is a position that is there when you keep yourself. You're not touched by the world outside. You're not touched by the chain that's occurring. Ete Brahman Mahadoshaha Samsara Vyadhihetavaha Managapina Limpanti Chittam Eka Samahitaha. The sage, these great faults which are to be the cause of the disease of the world, existence do not seize the mind, which is firm and composed even a little. When the mind is just at that spot, at that center line, which is not affected by anything in this world outside. They're all peripheral, but you are at the center. When this happens, Ete Brahman Mahadoshaha. The cause of the disease of world is do not hold on to you. Disease that does not hold on to you. You are freed from that. Atmachinta Mahasrishta Sarva Sankalpa Varjita Sarva Dukha Kshekari Sarva Sabhagyavardhini Karanam Jivita Seha Pranachinta Samashitaha. The contemplation of the self, Atmachinta, destitute of all ideation, Mahasreshta, it is something which is extraordinary. He is the most excellent means that causes the destruction of all sorrow. Sarva Sankalpa Varjitaha. And we don't have any sankalpa. That is a Sarva Dukkha Kshayakari. Dukkha is sorrow. All the sorrow can be eliminated. The sorrow actually means basically, I wanted something, I didn't want something to happen. I like it, I don't like it. This way it is okay, this way it is not okay. When we have these pairs of opposite, the stronger the pairs of opposite your attachment is, the greater is your pain and suffering. Whereas if you don't have that strong pairs of opposite, then that suffering is not there. Centering yourself through that gyration that's going on means you don't have any preference either way. You are at the center. Once you keep yourself at the center, everything will become like as it is for you, acceptable. Atmachinta Mahasreshta Sarva Sankalpa Varjita Sarva Dukkha Kshayakari Sarva Saubhagyadayini Karanam Jivita Sesha Pranachinta Samashritaha. The self destitute of all ideation, the most excellent means that causes the destruction of all sorrows and increases Sarva Dukkha Kshayakari Sarva Saubhagyavardhini. That means that it increases our blissful nature or the blessed nature and the contemplation of prana, which who when practiced is the cause for the lifelong. So that means say you are not affected by the gravity. You can easily transcend the gravity. And the nerve, you look at the prana and you are samashritaha. That means what a beautiful way that you have taken the course of the pure pranachanta, the pure pranic activity, not influenced by anything. You know, last time also we were looking at the prana is something, by nature it is having the movement in the upper direction. That's the only force which really defies the gravity. So it defies the gravity. You put the seed in the soil and provide the ambience, the moment there is life in that seed, then immediately it sprouts and the plant comes out, goes in the vertical direction above the earth, almost like 30, 40 feet if it is a coconut tree or something like that. So that means what an extraordinary thing that prana is there. And inside the seed, you see the amount of prana is so little. Inside the plant, it's a little prana. Not only it carries the plant outside the seed against the gravity all the way into the sky, but it also carries all the impressions, all the details that are there, so that the tree that will come will have exactly the kind of imagination or the idea, expectation that is there in the seed. And seed does not contain all those things in reality in the form of the manifested world outside, but it can exist in the form of a subtle reality. But then all those things are subtle reality is that which cannot be pursued by the sensory organ. By looking at the seed, you will not be able to say what kind of fruits will come, what kind of these things will happen in that seed. You will not know it. What a secret it is, that means all these things happening at the prana level. And when the prana manifests like that, pranachinta samashitaha jivitasaiva karanam. And that is what the reason for the birth that takes place. Eva mukto maya prashtaha pranachinta kimuchyate Bhushundu mam tataha prahaha pranapano iti shruto urthvarthi kiladehasmin prasute anilo vape. When told by Bhushundu like this, then what is spoken as contemplative of prana? You said that by contemplation of the prana, these things will happen. What do you mean by contemplation of prana? Or in other sense, what is that meditation you do in the name of prana? He then told the two life wings, that means to say that there is the whole prana activity is considered as two, like prana and apana on one side, day and night is another side. So like that there is pairs of opposite that is there between these two things, that the creation is happening. He is told that the two life winds that are there, and which is there in the form of winds that is there, prana and apana, these are the two aspects of our prana. One is upward and the other is downward. One is right and one is left. So this way, these two things that are there, and by controlling these two, and he also gives prana and apana are the efferent and efferent in nature. And then one is inhalation, exhalation. One is a systolic and the other is a diastolic. So there are two things that are available corresponding to inhalation, exhalation respectively. Then Kalevara Mahayantraha Vahayoho Shamahinayoho Hrudakashar Shashinoho Agnishe Agnishoma Swarupayoho Jagrat Swapna Sushupteshu Sadeva Samarupayo Durlakshyam Vidyamanapi Gatihi Sukshmataranayo Pranapano Ubho Ete Spandasha Shaktis Sadagati. All these things which are there in the form of Jagrat Swapna Sushupti, wakeful dream and deep sleep state, and then action, non-action, and then day and night, all those things that are there, Durlaksha Vidyamanapi Gatihi Sukshmataranya Anyayoho, all these things, these difficult pranapana are always in motion. Whatever may be the state that you are, this inhalation, exhalation, pranapana is constantly going on. Therefore, urdhvagastu stitaha pranapanoho punaha avak stitaha. That means to say, prana going upwards, on the other hand, apana exists downwards. So, when these things, bahyonmukhatvam prananam yadvadambuja kotarat swarasenasta yatnanam stam dhiraha rechikam vipuhu. Having been given up this inclination, as from the hollow of the lotus, and they are occupying, extending into 12 finger breaths externally from there, the nostrils, as known as rechaka, and the full content with the body of the prana, and is called as puraka, inhalation. The involuntary nature of the respiration is indicated above. This involuntary nature of the respiration, that's what is very important aspect of it. Krishna also in Bhagavad Gita gives another way, that apane juhvati pranam. That means to say, your expiration is surrendered itself, is offered itself to inspiration. And same way, inspiration is offered to the expiration. That means to say, they balance themselves whatever the way that it is demand is there, and then you be from that. You do not poke yourself into that, you do not interfere with that, allow it to happen. It's very difficult for us to do that because we always think that we are anxious to do something. We need to do something. No, don't have that idea. Allow it to manipulate itself, manage itself. Then there is a best way that they can manipulate. Rechakaha purakaschaiva kumbhakascha trithastita bahyashra ambara myata ksheti tattal lakshitaha. And Patanjali also gives a very beautiful idea about that. Exhalation, inhalation are like the two birds, two wings of the bird. They are only the wings of the bird. Bird is in between. And then these two things balance themselves in such a way that your journey continues. So exhalation and inhalation are like two birds for you, and you are the bird in between, not being touched by these two things. If you try to dissociate from these two things, then you are in a peaceful, quiet state. You are not touched by that. And that's what you can come across. The kumbhaka, that means to say after exhalation, a quiet state that is there, When you identify with that, you are that bird in between which is not touched by these exhalation inhalation, and they keep going on, and then you free yourself from the prana. Therefore, that this characterizes a devotion of external internal. In between that is there. You are in that sandhi, in that state. Chirajivata karanam, the cause for the long life, avyaghram अस्मिन् व्यापारे बाह्यं परिहरन् मनः दिनेः कतिपयैरेवे परम् आप्नोति केवलम्. Study in the practice, avoiding external contact, and the mind attain to the supreme state absolutely, merely in a man of days. Once you observe that, you practice that, you come to a state where you are not touched by anything that is there outside, you are self-satisfied within. Esha hi chitta vishrantihi maya prana samadhinaha kramanena sampraptam sayam atmani nirmale. By this method of bringing together the prana apana, the yin and yang, the pairs of opposite, prana apana is only one aspect of it, but then its various branches is, which is having two pairs of opposites there. And then when you try to balance that, in the mind also that this balance enters into, and the repose of the mind in the stainless self has indeed obtained by me spontaneously. When you do that, you get into that state of spontaneity. Spontaneously, you are not touched by anything like that, but you are steady at one place. Idea of steadiness at one place is that the whole movement has stopped. The whole activity has completely calmed down. So that means what is that state that you are in? Is the state where you are peaceful and no activity is going on. That's what brings us to next sutra. Na bhutam na bhavishyatcha chintayami kadachana drishtimalabhyatisthami vartamanaha ihatmanaha. Your mind is completely in the present. It does not go into the future and the past. What happened in the past, what happened in the future, all those things mind does not pick up. Mind is though only at the center. And that's what is tishtami vartamanan ihatmanaha. And the vartamana, that means in the present, that mind is there. That mind which is there in the present is the state where there is no mind at all. That means you transcend the mind. You are not anymore with the mind, you transcend the mind. Until all the activities that are there about the manifested world outside, it all depends upon the mind. It all associated with the mind. So, body, mind, intellect, and all those things, they have come and going qualities. That's what Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita also. Even the Brahmaloka has a quality of coming and going. That's why Bhushundu says when the Brahma also goes away at the time of Kalpanta, and then again Brahma comes back and settles in the Brahmaloka, and then the tree is there, Brahmaloka, and then I settle on the tree. Until that time I'll be hanging without any body, without any support. I'm just there. When you don't have any particular body or anything, that you are everywhereness, and that everywhereness in the form of Bhushundu comes back and the rests on the tree. And then the journey continues. The Brahma continues, creation happens, and then the whole creation is going on in front of me. And this is how I see at the end of the Kalpa. I see that Kalpa ended, and then the whole thing again comes back. For a long period of time, whatever that happens in the form of manifestation, and manifestation is such a huge time. That's what I said. That manifestation is like the twinkling star that you see, and unmanifest is this darkness that is there spreading from one star to another star. That's an extraordinary thing. Natishtanti, natushtati shubha prapte, na shubheshvasikil chidyate. The mind is not delighted, past is not there, future is not there, mind is the present, mind itself is not there. The mind is not delighted on the arrival of good fortune, nor does it suffer misery. Pairs of opposite, misery and the joy, both these things are not there. It's ever in equanimous state, unfettered, unaffected by the circumstances that are there. Due to this, I live free from the disease. Mano samam nityam tena jivam anamayaha. Anamaya means there is no question of suffering that is there. Anamaya, amaya means basically that there is sickness. In fact, there is another expression that's there in the Upanishad. The body itself has the sickness. The body undergoes the sickness. It's a common thing that the body is there, that you need to go through that sickness that is there. But if you do not have the identity with the body, the sickness does not touch you. When your mind is peaceful, manomam samam nityam, absolutely samam, in a balanced state, nityam, and it's all the time. And tena jivatmanama, the jivam, anamayaha. That means that person does not have any sickness. The body has sickness, but he doesn't have that sickness. A beautiful example that happened in the case of Ramana Maharshi, that he was so peaceful, he was like that. In fact, there is a small documentary video that has come about Ramana Maharshi, and that documentary shows how Ramana Maharshi is so peacefully sitting or walking in the ashram that is there. And man, a few words, but then you can see the smile on his face all the time. He doesn't have anything on the clothes or something like that. He has only the lion cloth and the staff in his hand. And whoever comes to him, he just blesses peacefully. Nothing really touches him. He doesn't have possession of money, but then at the same time, money is taken care of. It's such a beautiful incident that happened in the case of Ramana Maharshi. One day he was sitting there, and then somebody comes and then requests Ramana Maharshi that, look, my daughter is getting married, and I need some money, something about small little money, 10,000 rupees or something like that. Those days were quite big money. I'm falling short of it. I don't know. Really, I'm panicking. I'm not in a mood, right? Mood. Basically, this is what is bothering me. Ramana Maharshi just asked him to sit down. Just he was sitting there. Ramana Maharshi also just sat down there. Time passed for about half an hour, 1 hour. Then there is a wealthy man comes from somewhere, and he comes and bows in front of Ramana Maharshi. And he says he would like to donate about 10,000 rupees, and he puts that 10,000 rupees on the Ramana Maharshi. In front of Ramana Maharshi, there is a plate in which he keeps it along with some fruits and all those things. Because it's a custom in India that whenever you go to see a saint, you take the flowers, you take the fruits, and also you give him some money. Because the saint does not use the money for himself, it is for the sake of society. So as a gratitude, they give it, and then this man gave all those things and went away. Ramana Maharshi looked at that person, said, come on, take this, this has come for you. He did not even touch that. That means he was at the center, in periphery all these things happen. Doesn't even touch him. That's what is the example of Ramana Maharshi, where he was in such a peaceful state, and every time, and when he would sit under the tree, lean against the tree on his shoulder, supporting the shoulder on the tree, he would sit down. For such a long time that he was sitting, every time that he does the satsang darshan and all that, people will look at him. Over a period of time, that on his shoulder that he developed a small little abscess, and that abscess became big one. And later on they found out blood was oozing out of it. One of his disciples, he said that no, we need to investigate it, we need to do the surgery. But she said, leave it alone. I'm not bothered by that, and it's happening in the body. They did not even care for it. But then they insisted they do the study, they do the examination of that. They examined that and said, Ramana Maharshi, this is like a cancer growth that's happening. We need to do the surgery, remove it. First, Ramana Maharshi said, what is there? This body goes one day or the other and let it. It's not even touched him. But then they insisted they want to do the surgery. Ramana Maharshi said, okay, you can do the surgery. You want to scoop it out and remove it? You can do it. You're at liberty. Then the doctor said that, okay. Then he made all the arrangements for Ramana Maharshi. They came, tried to give anesthesia. And Ramana Maharshi asked, what is that you are doing? I said, this is a medicine that we are giving so that it puts you to sleep. You don't feel the pain. Because while scooping that, it may become painful. So therefore, you need to take it. Ramana Maharshi replied to them, why do you give them injection? Why do you give me a shot? Just do it. Tell me that I should not feel pain. They were shocked. That means he was not even the body-mind complex. He was free from that. So he was looking at the other side and talking to the people joyfully. And on the other side, that they just cut open and then removed all that abscess that was there. And sutures, they put it back. And they turned to Ramana Maharshi, everything is over. Ramana Maharshi said, okay, I bless you. As if nothing happened to him, he was sitting there. But then every 2-3 days, they have to come and then do the nursing of the wound or, cleaning that. So they were doing it. Every time they come, Ramana Maharshi, they would tell that, and Ramana would withdraw himself from the joint, and then they do that. So every time they thought this is happening, then they felt this man seemed to be very thick-skinned. That means you do anything, it doesn't feel pain, it doesn't touch it, he doesn't feel the pain. So one time that they came and started handling the hand, at once he shouted saying that, oh, it pains. Tell me that you are handling the hand so that I will not be there. I will withdraw from that. I'll go to my center, which is supposed to be that center of this Darwish dance, where I'm not touched by the body-mind complex. Once he withdrew, they did it, and everything was okay. So that shows, that example shows that Ramana Maharshi was controlling it as a master. That means to say, it is not that something that he has, he doesn't feel the pain, but he consciously withdraws from the center where it is supposed to be pain. The body-mind complex is something where the pain is there, and if you are in the consciousness, the pain will not be there. This is what is the state, he says. You are free from anamayaha. That means, say, amaya is the sickness, and then you are free from the sickness that is there. In the sense that it does not touch you, it has belonging to the body. And that's what in another Upanishad says, that is dharma. Kamaschalantu tad dharmaihi pranayirva anyata manaha ananda buddhi purnasya name kinchit pradishyati. I am peaceful inside, nothing touches me. Yeah, body has its dharma, it follows that. That's why this is something which is very important. I have given us the sutra for this week. Ayam bandhuhu paraschayam samayam ayam anyatha iti brahman najanami tenasmin chirajivitaha. This is mine and this is not mine. This is, I know it, this is a stranger. This is one, is the other is sage, I do not apprehend, I feel, and hence I am long lived. For me, there is, Bhushundu says so beautifully to VASISTHA, that this is mine, this is outside. That means to say, I do not create any kind of a boundary around. If you do not create any boundary, you are existing all the time. What is this boundary that you create? Is the boundary of this life, next life, and then next life, and then this kalpa to next kalpa. All these things are nothing but boundaries that we create. Somebody who is beyond boundaries, all those things. Aham bandhuhu paraschayam. There is something which is outside mine and something is mine. Mamayam anyamanyathaha, anyamthayaha. So there is something which is mine and then not mine. Iti brahman najanami. Absolutely no idea of that. Tenasmin chirajivita. This is the idea of long life. Life does not undergo the change. What Vishnu says, that what is the way that we can apply it is, in small little way, let us try to remove the boundaries. Let's try to take away these boundaries wherever it is possible. It may not be that you can remove the boundaries in the world outside, but at least deep inside your mind, you can take away these boundaries. You do not have that. In the family itself, within the husband and wife, within the brothers, we create so many boundaries. Asha, apasha, Vinunna Vinunnayaha chittavritte samahitaha samsprasham natadamyataha tena jivanmaya anamaya etatte kathitam brahman yathasmi charajivita. I do not allow permit within the contact of any mental disposition, thought, prompted by the snare, hope, composed. Hence I live without disease. The second thing he says, one thing is idea called as mine and not mine, that means a boundary of that. And second thing is I'm not caught by the desires, greed. All those things, I do not allow that to happen in the mind. Snares of hope composed, hence I live without disease. There is no question of hope. There is no question of any running around for the world, so therefore there is no disease. Say, this has been narrated to you as to how I live longer. Opposite to long life is the sickness, is the death. Now the death is not there, sickness is not there, therefore I live longer. That's why in Shastras they say that crow is a bird which does not undergo any disease unless until we inject a disease in them. Aho prokta tavodantaha param vismaya karanam evamukta tamaschatya maya bhujo divam gatam. Yato krita yugasyadau punaha tenasmikantah sangatah madhye shrota yuga syasya jataha tvam ripusudaraha punaradhyashtame varche tatraivorapi bhubhuva milito bhut bhushundo me tathevaja janarupavan. Again, in the beginning of Krita, again, this is what is Krita Yuga, the first Yuga that has elapsed. I have met with him, destroyer of enemies. You are born in the midst of the Treta Yuga, again, the 8th year now, and after that current Bhushundu was met by me, the mountains, there were, etc. So again and again, Yuga after Yuga, Krita Yuga, this Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and then Kali Yuga. And then he goes over all those things and then come back again. Which means basically that there is another important idea is that you see the change against something which is not changing. And that not changing of all the kalpa, kalpanta, and that exists is supposed to be whatever that exists, Brahman, Atman, is the way that even the Bhushundu is the one who exists beyond all those things. Idam te katitham chitram, Bhushundo dantam uttamam, sritva vicharya chaivanya, yat yuktam tat samacharaha. From Bhushundu, what is that we have to learn is, we do this pranayama practice. And we do various practices under the name of pranayama, various variety that is there. There are 72 different varieties of pranayama. But the essential feature of all that pranayama is that slow down the breathing, inhalation, exhalation. One complementary to the other, one try to really replace the other very gently, softly, like the way the day merges into the night, night merges into the day. The same way that apana merges into the prana, prana merges into the apana. And when it merges like that, the transition that is there, when you really actually do the pranayama, you can see that this transition between the exhalation and inhalation, it goes on stretching itself. That stretch is the state where the prana is almost like still. That's the right way of doing pranayama, so that you establish yourself in that stillness, identify with that. Therefore, exhalation and inhalation are like the two wings on either side, far away from you. You are not touched by that. If the exhalation and inhalation are far away from you, not touched by that, all the pairs of opposite along with that also, they fall away from you. Therefore, that you are not easily become a victim of pairs of opposite. You are like Bhushundu. What my point is that you may not live for a kalpa, thousands of years. That's not even an issue. But the issue is that whatever the life that you live, You're not fighting with the pairs of opposite. You are sailing smoothly along with the flow of life. And that is the greatest gift of yoga. That's the greatest gift of sadhana that we have understood. So with this, that we will stop it. And next time that we will continue our discussions into the next chapter. Thank you so much. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.